Hello, everyone. This is Sherry Greenhouse, Managing Partner of Serum Exchange, and I'd like to welcome you to our final session of today where we're going to have a hands-on workshop, The Magic of Metrics and Benchmarking. So I am going to introduce your speaker, Bruce Belfiore, CEO of BenchmarkPortal. And as a call center industry thought leader, Bruce hosts the monthly online radio show called CallTalk, and he discusses leading-edge customer contact issues with industry experts. He is a frequent speaker at industry events, and he's consulted with many Fortune 1000 companies. Bruce heads the College of Call Center Excellence, which provides all sorts of courses for call center professionals. He is an author of the book Benchmarking at its Best for Contact Center. He's written numerous research papers and articles, and he has an MBA and a JD degree from Harvard, so he's very, very smart. So here's Bruce.
Well, Sherry, thank you very much for that kind introduction, and it's great to be with all of you today to share this information on what I call benchmarking at its best. And as many of you know, BenchmarkPortal began as a student project at Purdue University in 1995 when we put out the industry's first true benchmarking study. And we've grown a lot since and now have the world's largest database of contact center metrics. It includes everything from Fortune 500 to medium and small players. And we provide managers and consultants with benchmark reports and with training and other services that Sherry mentioned. So on this presentation, I'll be going deep on benchmarking, and we'll address the issues why benchmark and how to benchmark. Let me just see if I can, there we go. Okay, why benchmark, how to benchmark, what do I do with that report, the tools that I need to get started, and the next one's really very important, have fun. Okay, part of what goes on with benchmarking when it's done properly and when the methodology is right is that it's great mental gymnastics and you actually end up enjoying the managerial experience. And I want you to think about that and to hopefully experience that yourself. And while you're having fun, though, you're able to get serious value out of the benchmarking experience for your enterprise and for yourself. And then we'll also talk about ebooks that will be made available to you with downloadable workbook that will actually give you an idea of how some of this works. And you'll be able to get that through the booth that we have at the event here. So for those of you who aren't really familiar with benchmarking and decided to come to this just to find out what it's all about, let me use a couple of analogies that we're all familiar with. One is the dreaded report card, right? We all know what that's like, and basically the report card benchmarked us against our peers when we were in school. Then there's also the situation of going to your doctor and getting your blood panel, and you get that in conjunction oftentimes with your annual physical, and you see your metric for instance, cholesterol, next to a range, and that range represents the healthy spectrum of your peers. People of the same gender and age who are effectively your benchmarking peer group. I bet you never thought of it that way, but really that's what it's all about. And the last example here is kind of cute, measuring your height against your siblings as you were growing up. You know, that probably may have been the first experience of metrics benchmarking that you ever had. So in the case of our benchmarking, we look at metrics that come from the contact center. And what I'd like to do is to ask those of you on the phone, how many of you have actually done a proper benchmarking of your center already? If you could just put in yes or no, and if the answer is no, don't be embarrassed. You're in good company. Just enter no, and we'll take a look at what you have indicated. Okay. Okay. Sherry, I think we see most people have some experience, some don't have experience. And so that's fine. For those who are not really familiar with the concept of benchmarking, I'll offer you some examples that we can relate to. And we'll talk more about the kind of benchmarking that you can do with your call center. So in the case of the call center, we look at metrics that come from the contact center. They're the the ones that you see here, and many, many more. And you get this information from your management reports, and then you input them into the benchmarking survey, et cetera. And that's really how it all works. Well, the question also comes up with why benchmark? Why should I go through the effort of actually doing this? And it's really to see your metrics side by side with your competitive peers. And by doing that, you identify your strengths and weaknesses in an objective, quantitative way. And it's hugely important and hugely useful management information because, among other things, it fosters better understanding of your center's performance, and it ends up spurring action. When you see those weaknesses and you want to do something to change things, which is a healthy thing that leads to progress. And that's what you want to do as a manager in a call center. You want to get better on a year-to-year basis and hopefully even on a month-to-month basis. What happens in terms of the methodology is you take the metrics where you're not performing well and you map them over to specific people, process, and technology issues. I'll show you more about that in just a little bit. But this is a very healthy process. It spurs very good discussion inside the center. And at the end of the day, you discover where you're not doing so well. You understand what's causing the factors because you discuss it, you think about it, you read about it, you do other things and talk to experts about it. And then you discern fixes that will actually improve your position. This is an ideal way of having a continuous improvement system built into your management structure. And at the end of the day, you will create real value in terms of both dollars, because you will be saving money for your company, and also in terms of quality, because you'll be seeing those areas where perhaps you're underperforming your competitors and perhaps not doing justice to your brand in terms of really bringing across high quality service, and you'll be able to do something about it. And at that point, you're really, as I say, creating value for your enterprise, and it's quantifiable value. It's right there in black and white. Actually, they're in the numbers. So how to benchmark is also very important because, as we have heard on some of the other discussions as well, really, process is so important. It's not just technology. It's not just the numbers. It's not just the metrics. It's also the processes that we bring to it. And the best way to do this is to work with your colleagues to create the real value, both in terms of the financial aspects and in terms of quality. And this is, in fact, a very important way of bringing people together around a common objective, because benchmarking is most effective when it has senior support and it has your peer colleagues' support as well, so that you're all working toward better understanding of how you're doing, and you're also trying to then take that information and do something with it. So you gather the ACD metrics from your ACD reports, and you get other metrics from your other system reports, for instance, your workforce management report and other reports that you may have. And you may have to get some of the information from human resources or whoever keeps the data on attendance, et cetera. So other departments will be involved, which is fine. It helps build what I call a radio organization, where you as a call center are more connected with and communicate better with your fellow departments. Then also, you need to be sure to refer to the glossary of definitions. Benchmarking needs common denominators. It needs to have common definitions. So you need to look at the definition of the benchmarking that you're doing and make sure that the information you're putting in meets that definition. And you may have to, in a couple of cases, actually recalculate your metrics in order to meet the definitions used by the benchmarking service that you're using. So very important to do that, though, so that you get the right information. In our case, we always ask for more metrics, actually, than we really need so that we can do cross-checks and quality checks just to make sure that the data that's being entered is correct. Now, a word of advice, benchmark against your own industry. We'll see some more information on this a little bit later, but simply benchmarking against the world is not a good idea. And the more granular you can get, the better. As long as it's not beyond a point that's useful. You know, you want to get down to a level of granularity in terms of your peer group that you're benchmarking against that makes it relevant to you. And what you're looking for there is, in particular, call types, making sure that the call types that are coming in to the competitive group is the same kind that you have as well. So there's really compelling reasons to benchmark, to get crucial management information. I can remember writing at one point that you can't really consider yourself in line with management best practices if you don't benchmark, because if you don't, then you're making decisions a bit in the dark. So let me ask you too, if everybody could go to their comment section there, and what metrics does your center follow most closely? If you could put that in for us now, we'd appreciate it. And Sherry, maybe you could tell us what's coming up.
Okay, sure. Let's see. What's coming up is, wow, we have a very engaged group. Net Promoter Score, first call resolution, average handle time, release time, average wait time, lots of Net Promoter Scores, lots of handle times, service levels, abandon rates, CSAT, abandon percentage. Similar things between Net Promoter Scores, handle times, CSAT, those type of things.
Okay, and what's really interesting there is, if you think about it, the Net Promoter Score is very much on the quality side of things, while the handle time is on the efficiency side of things. So if you have one or the other as your basic baseline metric, that's very indicative of what it is that is important to your management and to yourself and your center. So that's great to know. That's great to know. Thank you for all those inputs. Well, so the data goes in and the report is produced. And quality control is extremely important. As I indicated, we do these cross checks that go through 3 layers. There's a couple of mechanical layers and layers that regard doing cross checks that are computed. And then there's also a human cross check just to do a sanity check on things. And then the reports come out. And it's when the reports come out that the magic begins. The nerds and the managers among us, will rub our hands with anticipation as we get to open the report. And, I want to note, by the way, that the metrics here are illustrative only, so don't take the numbers seriously. But the concepts, please do take very seriously, so that when you actually do benchmark against real data, you'll understand the value that you can get from this. So out comes the report, and we move along here. There are literally tons of metrics. I was listening to Matt Redding's presentation this morning, Sherry, and a questioner asked or indicated they followed over 100 metrics internally. Do you remember that? 100 metrics.
I do remember that, yep.
I mean, that is crushing, can you imagine? And probably not too good for focus either, because oftentimes, if you focus on something, it will move. And however, the first thing to do is to conceptually divide all these wonderful metrics into a few big buckets so that we understand what they are. And the first bucket that I'm going to talk about here are the classification metrics. They include the ones that you see here and many more, and they include metrics that relate to volume, to size, to number of agents, types of calls, unionization, that sort of thing. They are not performance metrics per se, but they're good to know to frame your position against your industry averages. And so it's something that you should know, and in some cases is important to know, particularly if you're on the very small or the very large end of the equation. So these are good things to know. They are the classification metrics, bucket number 1. So then we have the efficiency metrics. And efficiency metrics are ones like these. So they have inbound calls per agent per hour, cost per inbound call, talk time, after call work time, utilization, occupancy, very important efficiency metrics, adherence to schedule, attendance, aux time, supervisor, what we call span of control usually, agents to supervisor ratio, and turnover. full-time agents. These are metrics that will have an important impact on the bottom line, on the budget, on the money side of things. They'll be the ones that ultimately will be most valued by your CFO, but you have to have them in your sights as well. It's one of the two sides of the performance equation that you need to definitely pay attention to. And by looking at your value and looking at the industry average and then looking at the gap, you can see where you're performing well and where you're performing not so well, and where you're performing perhaps pretty much on par with your industry average. And what's important on these is to see where you're not performing so well, and then to take that and to be able to compute the value of your negative gap. Because when you do that, you can start putting dollar signs to the negative gaps, and that can help you when you're arguing for budget for some improvements, because you can indicate that, look, these are not wild numbers that were pulled from the sky or something. These are actual industry averages. Our competitors are making this, but our competitors, after discussion, are probably doing something or have a piece of technology that we don't have or something like that. And when we've done our discussions and our discernment, et cetera, we are able to indicate, and we'll talk about this more a little bit later, to our management that we'll be able to do better if we are able to get certain budget items. So it's really important. This is something that will have a major change, or can create major changes in your center if you do it right. Then we have the effectiveness metrics. These are the ones that are oftentimes called quality metrics. And these are the ones that are perceptible by the customer. They're related to the service delivered as opposed to the quantity. They are, as I said, emphasizing the quality. And they're things like satisfaction, first call resolution. Actually, I love first call resolution because it's both an effectiveness and an efficiency metric. And anybody who wants to talk about that, I'd love to do so. There's average speed of answer, transfers, hold time, time in queue, and abandons. These are things that the customer will perceive, and they will understand whether this is a quality operation or not, depending on these metrics. So they're very important. We also have there, you'll notice, agent satisfaction, and there's a good correlation between agent sat and customer sat, and so that's one of the reasons why that is followed and is included there. So, you know, and then we need to also consider the multi-channel metrics. And what I mean by that are the metrics for email in particular, social media, web chat, et cetera. And then there's still a lot of legacy stuff going on in terms of postal mail, fax, et cetera. It depends on the industry, depends on the geography. But you'll also see that, and we do collect metrics on that. There aren't as many metrics, however, that are regularly kept by people. So in order to have a statistically valid sample, really there's fewer in these some people will call them alternate channel, as compared to the voice channel. However, that is changing, and as time goes on, we're collecting more and more of those metrics because more and more they're available. So you get your report, and what should you do with it? Well, it's just like with your report card, you know, or with your cholesterol. When you're looking at your benchmarking report for your call center, you should look at the places you're doing well. Pat yourself on the back for those. I mean, celebrate that and understand why you may be doing better. Do some analysis on that because you may get some important realizations about your competitive advantages, and that's a good thing to know, and it's a good thing to be able to communicate to your management as well, and also a good thing to be able to communicate to your people, the people in your center. There may be some situations in which you're doing very well, but at very high expense. For instance, you may have an average speed of answer that is twice as good as the industry average. And then it's appropriate to ask yourself, okay, is this twice as good because our business model and our mission statement, et cetera, all point toward having that kind of a response time? Or is it perhaps being overdone and costing us too much? That's a healthy conversation to have. that's a good conversation, good managerial conversation to have, and to understand where you are. So knowing where you're doing really well is extremely important and something that you can really get your hands into when you have this kind of a report in front of you. But where you get the biggest bang for your buck is looking at the metrics where you're behind your industry average. It's just like when you get your report card or your blood panel report, you can learn a lot from those weak points, and you should. There's a lot of great managerial things that you can do. And what you can really learn a lot from is when you map those negative gaps to people, process, technology, and organizational issues that underlie each of the negative gaps. I mentioned this earlier on, but this is something very, very important. So here, in fact, we've got 24 processes that are very important to any call center. And when you actually do map things over, so for instance, let's say that you have a very high agent turnover rate. You can see that there's numerous of these things that would have to do or could have an impact on agent turnover. Hiring new agents, are we getting the right people? Training the agents, are we training them the right way? Developing them the right way, et cetera. In fact, of these 24, 14 of these actually have an impact on the agent experience and therefore will have an impact on agent turnover. In other cases, there's fewer in number of these that will have an impact, but it's important to know these. And when you start playing with this, when you start understanding it, it will be very, very revealing, and we'll see too that there's some other advantages as you go along. So one of the things though I'd like to just mention again is the fact that you should, benchmark against your own industry. Because if, for instance, we take average talk time, which is one that we were talking about, and if you look at financial services overall, the average from our database is 4.28 minutes, and actually this is a real number, unlike the others that you've seen. So the financial services banking average, so this is the subset of financial services, which is for the banking industry, is 3.6 minutes. If we look, on the other hand, at the annuities, okay, which tend to be longer calls, more involved, that's 4.68 minutes. So if you are in the annuity business and you just look at the overall financial services number, then you're not going to get the kind of accuracy that you would like to have. Consider the fact that here you could be off by 30% and therefore not be doing yourself any favor in terms of the metric that you're looking at. So do benchmark against your own industry, okay? Here's the example with regard to average talk time I'd like to talk about here as well. You know, this is a good hot button metric. We debated a lot inside of BenchmarkPortal, and you know, some watch it like a hawk, and some have thrown it out the window in the interest of quality. And most of us still follow it with some degree of concern. But if you're deficient in this area, it's worth looking into. For example, one center I worked with was considerably above the norm in terms of their average talk time, and we did a very healthy forensic and found out a whole bunch of interesting things. One was, for example, that there was poor call control skills. The agents had never really been taught how to control calls well and how to do that in an efficient way. They had poor call closing skills. I remember one situation where, in particular, we were dealing with a center in the South, and the people were just so nice there. I mean, you just wanted to hug every single one of them. But when it came to call closure, it just seemed to take forever. And so we did some talking to them and showed them how they could show good respect, good service, keep customer satisfaction up, but simply utilize better, more professional call closing skills, and in fact, reduce the average talk time in a measurable way. So that was important. Also, in some cases, slow CRM. If you have to toggle among, 8 different systems and the systems are slow, that is also going to have an impact on your average talk time. Even if you're not talking, it's considered against your average talk time. But finding that out and finding out that it's actually handicapping you is a very important thing. And understanding that it's probably not just handicapping you in terms of the cost of your service, but also the quality of your service, because your customers can't be happy about having to wait longer while your CRM systems are, chugging away and trying to get the information through. And another situation here was suboptimal knowledge management processes. So the agents were not did not have available to them the information that they should have as quickly as they should. So action was taken on these items. The situation improved measurably in these various situations and without harming customer satisfaction. And so this was really important, opened the eyes of a lot of people in the centers involved who hadn't really done this sort of thing before. And really, it's the essence of good management, isn't it, to do exactly this kind of thing. And there turns out to be a great bonus in this sort of thing. There's a cascade effect that we see time and again. So, for instance, properly reducing, by properly reducing, I mean doing it the right way and not just, pushing people off the phone, because that will have a deleterious effect that we can talk about in the Q&A if anyone is interested. But, properly reducing average talk time is an efficiency or cost metric. Well, it turns out that this will also tend to improve your average speed of answer. Why? Because if your average talk time is less, then those people free up to take other calls more quickly. And this will have a good impact on a quality metric, which is your average speed of answer. And it will also have a good impact on your average queue time, which is also a quality metric. And it will also have a good impact on your first call resolution. Because if the training is right, then that will also follow. And that's my favorite metric there, the quality and cost metric. So this cascade effect is something that you will find that comes out of a good benchmarking methodology and a good process. You'll see the benefits to your center from all of these things, and you'll have the collateral benefits of these cascade effects. So, it's virtuous, wonderful, magical, and you can really, find a lot of good things in it. So another example is agent utilization. This is one where we oftentimes find that the first time through, people will have, low utilization rates compared to their industry. So consider this situation in which the value is about 70% compared to about 80% for the industry average. So 11% gap here, which is very substantial. Well, you could just say, well, big deal. Well, it is a big deal. And if you then do the numbers on it, which is what you should do as part of this whole process, you will find that it's a major thing. And it's due in many cases to poor HR planning, as we see off there to the right, the outdated workforce management systems, okay, undertrained workforce management managers who aren't really sure about exactly what they're doing and therefore are not doing it well. This happens all the time. And don't feel badly if you find yourself in that situation, but do something about it, because there are training programs, good courses out there that can help make sure that these people are properly trained, and lean on your vendors as well. Make sure that they're doing what they should do in terms of helping out. So the difference it makes can be huge. In this case, we see that there was utilization 69, industry metric 81, delta of 12. In this case, we had a number of agents of 200. The theoretical agent overage, okay, if we utilized our people at the same rate that the industry overall does, we would need 24 fewer people. And at an average cost overall per agent of $40,000, that's almost $1 million, okay? That is meaningful, so it does make a difference. And even if you were to say, well, we can't, get to the industry average because of, but you should be able to. Other people are doing it. But even if you couldn't, $500,000, that would be something to aim for, and that you could probably, fund and see a huge ROI from that kind of a project. Okay, great. So it makes a big difference. The calculation, I think, probably hits you between the eyes. And what we want to do is to make sure, too, that you have the tools that can help out. And those tools can include case studies that show you how other people have done this sort of thing. We have a case study on Blue Cross Blue Shield of Florida that I think you'll find very interesting, which is over on the right under case studies. And you'll also find 2 ebooks under further to the right, ebooks there, on metrics, and there's another one on benchmarking, which includes the interactive materials. And I'd love to go through that with you now, but there's not the time, but we will share that with you. So please go there and take a look at it. Just to give you a heads up on what's there, we have average talk time. You know, here's an exercise, the exercise book that you'll see, and it's got the all industries average, the current user metrics, so you would put your number in there. You would see what the gap is to the right of that, and then a financial impact. And then you could do a sandbox type of thing or a what if calculation. You could say, what if we could improve our metric to what's under here, and then take a look at the gap and see what the financial impact would be of that. So we try to make it easy on you and, you know, have fun with it. Definitely playing with these metrics is fun, and it's great mental gymnastics, as I mentioned earlier. So anyway, there's fun, exercise, serious value. We are going to play Jeopardy, call center Jeopardy. Have a little bit of fun with this here. So what we'll do is we'll ask Sherry to pick one of the categories and the amount, and we'll take a look at it together.
Okay, let's take abandonment rate for 400, Bruce.
Abandonment rate for 400. We should get the music, right? Okay. So what is an appropriate goal for your abandonment rate? Okay. So have everybody, if you would please, put in what you think an appropriate goal in percent is for your abandonment rate. That is to say, those people who abandon calls before they get to an agent, before they get resolved. Then there's sub-definitions, but I'm not going to get into that now. So, so what's coming through on that, Sherry?
Well, you got a couple hitting it right on the head, and the guesses are from 1 all the way through 12%.
Okay.
Pretty high abandonment.
Yeah, yeah, and it will make a difference. I mean, here, I'll show you what the answer is. Okay, 5%. 5% is what we look to. However, for that person who said 1%, let's say they're inbound sales. And let's say that they know that the cost of having such a low abandonment rate is offset by the sales they will make by capturing all those calls, then they have made a rational choice, okay? And, you know, in the other direction, there could be other reasons as well. But in general, we're looking for a 5% rate. So good.
And we also have someone that said 0, which is good. Okay.
Well, you know, that could be, for instance, emergency services,
right.
You know, and that's fine. We have a database with emergency services in there. We have some of them that try to do that. So, okay, let's go for our next one. What's the next one you'd like?
Let's have average speed of answer for 200.
Average speed of answer for 200. Okay. What is the global average speed of answer? Dum, 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 dum. So
and while they're answering, there's a question, for a smaller center, is a higher abandonment rate acceptable?
It's oftentimes necessary, unfortunately. Yeah, we're going to have a conversation on that, but in peak periods, small centers have bigger problems. They would get overwhelmed more easily. And so that will oftentimes cause higher abandonment rates with smaller centers. There are ways of dealing with that, including at-home agents and trying to get people to do self-service as much as possible. But generally speaking, yes, you know, that will happen. We see that.
Okay. And for the answers, most seem to believe it's around 20 seconds. And the answer is?
The answer is yes, 35 seconds. We have gotten worse over the years. I think everybody remembers the old 80-20 rule, okay, which was 80% of calls should be answered in 20 seconds. You know, sort of the average speed of answer is not exactly that same metric, but it's kind of closely related. What we've seen is that over the years, things have changed, and it seems that it's getting longer. This is not true for every industry, and there are definitely certain areas, and that's why you need to benchmark against your industry and not simply against the all industries average. But that's what we've got, and I expected this to be surprising to people. So anyway, all right, we'll go on to the next one.
Okay, let's take metrics for 600.
Okay, metrics for 600. Ta-da. Okay, if you only followed one metric, what would be the key KPI that increases caller satisfaction?
Well, if this doesn't work out, you can be a singer.
Yeah, well, I don't think so. I can hum.
Boy, many are getting it right on the nose here.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yep. Good. Okay, so we'll go to the answer, and the answer is first call resolution. This has a very high correlation with customer satisfaction and its corollaries, things like Net Promoter Score and customer effort score. For obvious reasons. I mean, first call resolution is, and it's that wonderful metric that has two sides to it. It's both an efficiency metric and it's an effectiveness metric. So, yeah, very good. Good, we're all on the same page there. Okay, not that the other metrics aren't, we love all our metrics just like parents do, right? But that's kind of a first among equals.
And for our final one, agent satisfaction for 800.
Okay, so we'll go to agent satisfaction for 800. Of the 24 processes that impact call handling experience, how many impact agent satisfaction?
Well, this one's a little harder.
This one's a little harder. Actually, though, if people were listening.
Oh, yeah, a lot are listening. Yeah.
They are listening? They were listening? Good.
They were listening.
They were listening. Okay, so we will go through it now. 14 of the 24. I mean, so many things have an impact on agent satisfaction. And as we know, agent satisfaction has an impact on customer satisfaction because happy agents tend to make happy customers. Happy agents, happy customers. Does this work every time? No, we've seen some anomalies, but it is something that does seem to hold true. So, well, very good. Sherry, that was pretty impressive on the part of our group here, don't you think?
It was. They're a great group.
Yeah, very good. Okay. So we're getting toward the end here. And again, a lot of good learning comes out of mapping your weak points to these and other people, process, technology issues. You learn so much from it. You then get better. You are able to re-benchmark and see how you're doing. Very, very important to be able to do. And one of the things, too, is that benchmarking does take a certain amount of effort to do properly. And so one of the things coming down the pipe in 2017 is automated benchmarking. So keep your eyes open for that. And it's something that will take some of the effort out of it and will make it a more regular thing. A lot of people do benchmarking only once or twice a year, which means that it's a great report card, but if it's automated, then it becomes more of a management tool, which it really should be. So keep an eye on that coming up. So, really the benchmarking value cycle, and the reason why I call benchmarking the mother of all best practices is because it really does have a radial effect on so many of the things that go on in the call center. When you know what your metrics are, when you know how you compare to your competition, there's a little bit of competitive spirit that comes out. There's a little bit of self-critique that comes out. And there's plenty of desire to celebrate that can come out. So you compare yourself to the competition, you identify the gaps, you identify improvements, you can go for certification if you're interested in that, and ultimately, in any event, you enhance the value that you bring to your enterprise. And that's extremely satisfying for a manager. So it's the kind of thing that, it's a tool. It's part of the toolkit that every manager should leverage, should get to know. I mean, if you've done it once, but you don't feel that you've really gotten into it, it's worth doing again and doing seriously, because the more you do it, the more you learn, and the more value you'll end up bringing to your call center. So I know I'm coming up on the end here, and would like to open things up for questions. Sherry, is there anything else that we're supposed to add here, or should we go straight to questions?
Let's go to questions, because there's a bunch of them coming in. And this person, I know, Bruce, you're going to want to visit them and work out benchmarking with them, because they are in the Caribbean. And their question is, my company's in the Caribbean and small in numbers. When considering cultural, geography, technology, and market size, how do you arrive at the best benchmarks for my company?
Right. Okay, so there's a bit of triangulation that has to go on here. Still, the most important factor overall is call type, and making sure that you're doing justice by yourself by getting the same kind of call types as your peers are. We have over 40 industry verticals that we have just as a stock item, if I could put it that way. But we can also do sub-cuts that are even more on point for people who want to do what we call peer group reports. So, you know, there are differences among different areas, but, you know, part of benchmarking is also seeing where maybe you should challenge yourself a little bit to get to global standards. So there's two sides here. One is, okay, I want to be fair to myself, and I want to be managerially correct with myself, but I also want to know what global standards are and see if maybe by doing the discovery, discernment, et cetera, I can find ways to actually get better than I am now.
Okay, let's see. I'm used to benchmarks being done at the industry level. Does a company decide its benchmark based on its own desired performance levels?
Well, it should obviously. Okay, so what happens is that people who look at themselves against themselves, I think I've got the sense of the question, I hope I do, but will end up benchmarking against themselves over time. And that's fine because they will get better if they try, but they're never sure if that getting better is appropriate or is going to make them more competitive. So that's why it's important to benchmark against your industry. And you should select the industry which is, you know, hand to heart, as they say, the appropriate one for you in terms of your call type and in terms of the business, et cetera.
Okay, now this person is, their customer is an alumni association, and they're having a hard time finding other universities that care about what their alumni think. So how do you benchmark against that if they're not, other universities aren't tagging, you know, benchmarking for their alumni?
Okay, so actually in those sorts of cases, one of the things that I suggest is that those people leverage us to try to help them to aggregate others who are in their industry. They tend not to be competitive. So if you've got your group of alumni, they're your alumni. You know, Notre Dame's not going to take an SC grad. It's not going to happen. And for all those UConn women's basketball fans out there, you know, if you're Tennessee or you're Maryland or something like that, then, you know, it's not going to overlap. So what a good idea to do is to try to bring your cohort together, and we will help you do that and create a cohort where perhaps one does not exist now. We have done a number of things for universities. I'd have to look specifically for alumni associations. I'm not sure we have, but I think it's a good idea because that also starts conversations. If, for instance, the benchmarking goes along with a quarterly call in which you share best practices, then that's really useful and interesting. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, and we have a shout out for Wisconsin. So just
okay.
add that.
On Wisconsin. Go Cheeseheads.
What's more important, global standards or country standard? If most callers are from the U.S., why would you want to benchmark globally?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So in the case of outsourcers offshore, if your basically your customer group is calling from the United States, then you would want to benchmark yourself against centers in the United States. And you would be particularly interested in the quality standards there. On the financial side, generally speaking, people go offshore because they know it's going to cost less. But where you're going to do the most, and you'll shine there. It'll be wonderful for you there. Where you'll get the most learning is by looking at how you're doing on the quality side. So, you know, there are possibilities to do country reports. We've done those and do those. But the best thing to do is to say, okay, what can I do to make myself more competitive for the market that I serve?
There's a question about sharing a formula for FCR. Is there a formula? Is there some place that can be found?
Okay, so first call resolution. It's a wonderful metric, but there are different people who collect it different ways. And, you know, we've written on this, other people have written on it. We've had CallTalk, which is our monthly radio program, online radio program, CallTalk. And so there's not one way of doing it. We are encouraging people to use immediate post-call surveys as the best way of determining first call resolution, because that way, you know, somebody, it won't be 100% accurate, but it'll be about as good as it can get in terms of mass surveying. So you have a call. At the end of the call, you call people back and ask them a series of questions. And the first question is, was your issue resolved on that call? And that way you're getting first call resolution from the customer and not from the agent or from another way of doing it, which could be, did somebody call back? Did the same Annie, did the same telephone number call back within a certain period of time? So that's, there is no one set way of doing it, but the best practice seems to be sort of forming around first call resolution through a post-call survey being the best way to do it. Why do I say it's not perfect? Because there are going to be some situations in which somebody will get off the phone, take the survey, think that they have their situation solved, and then for one reason or another, we'll find out the next day or a week later that it wasn't solved. Okay, it could be a billing correction or something like that. But that's usually a small error compared to, you know, the good information that you can get.
Okay. Do you have standard definitions for all metrics, and do you align with any specific set of standards?
Yes, so we have a glossary, very comprehensive. It's something that we have, you know, kept up to date over time as new metrics have come in with, you know, social and, you know, other kinds of metrics, et cetera, and we'd be very happy to share that with you. I can tell you, too, that our research department and our statistics committee love to, you know, talk about this stuff. So these are all very well thought out glossary definitions. So we'd be happy to share that with you. Sherry, how would people do that? Would they just contact me or what?
Yeah, I think it's probably best to contact you, and the contact information is there. And Bruce loves to talk to people, as you can see. Loves to talk to people. So you can go ahead and email Bruce, and he'll get that information.
Absolutely.
Okay. If you're handling complaints, taking orders, or something that you're not able to have a first call resolution, is there a second or alternate KPI that increases caller satisfaction?
Yeah, so complaint you know, the way the agent handles the call in terms of being courteous, et cetera, if you can't solve the problem on the first call, then at least you could handle it in a way that the person feels well respected, well taken care of, and that they will, in fact, have it resolved on the second, hopefully, try. So those are things that come out more out of the customer satisfaction survey and our sort of further down rather than top-level metrics. So I'd say, make sure that you've got a good knowledge management system, make sure that you can get them as far as they can go, make sure that it's described to them what's going to happen so that they have confidence that, in fact, the complaint will be resolved or whatever.
And someone wrote in setting expectations and timely updates, which I think is a good way to approach that if you can't get to them first call resolution.
Agree, yes.
Okay, are there different service level standards for the high-value customer versus the general customer?
Yes. So the high-value customer, and this is a matter of corporate strategy. So it's the sort of thing that needs to be well thought out, documented in terms of its value to the company. But yes, you will have many companies who have high-value customers in the travel industry and other industries who will make sure that they're, the answer time is very short and that they're going to somebody who's going to really be able to help them out, and it'll be escalated immediately if there's a problem, et cetera. So the client segmentation or customer segmentation is applied to many call centers.
Okay. Now, for metrics, how does, with all of the things in social, email, texting, SMS, how does that compare with the voice channel?
Okay, so good question, and one that we are, continually dealing with and wrestling with, the industry is in general. Because the thing about the voice channel is that it's very deep, wide, and long. We have, metrics that we've been tracking for 20 years at this point. And so there's a lot of knowledge and understanding there, and also people track them and are able to report them. In the case of these other channels, what we find is that even people who do them don't always keep metrics on them. If they keep metrics on them, there oftentimes are not many that they keep. So they will, have turnaround times, they'll have cost, but not a whole lot else. And we capture what we can, and we are always ready to discuss, what more might be done on those. So if anybody has ideas, please let us know, and particularly ways of encouraging your colleagues in the industry to actually capture those metrics.
Okay, good. And we're just about set to wrap up, and if you can remind everyone, Bruce, of the goodies that they get when they go to the booth.
Okay, so when you go to the booth, you'll be able to get case study. I encourage you to look at the Blue Cross Blue Shield of Florida one, because there's a lot of chewy information in there that you may see yourself in. There's also the e-books. The e-books are, as I said, one on benchmarking, one on metrics, and the one on benchmarking has that plug-and-play feature, which is obviously limited because it's just an example that we wanted to get and to have an understanding of the power of benchmarking when it's placed in the context of an overall methodology and a continuous improvement mindset. That's it. And let's see, what else do we have on the videos, articles? Oh, we have videos, articles, and other things. We encourage you to listen, if it's useful to you, to our monthly online radio program called CallTalk, and half-hour format, so it's really made to be downloaded and listened to in podcast form as you're driving to and from work. And what we do is to interview industry experts and managers. We've had a Harvard professor, a Northeastern professor on, and just hot topics and things that may be of use to you. So happy to make all those materials and resources available to you, and happy as well to talk to you about your interests and your needs, whatever they might be.
Thank you, Bruce. And in the survey that pops up, if you want Bruce to give you a call, if there's anything in particular about Benchmark that you want to learn more about, just jot that down in the comments, and we'll make sure that Bruce gets that information as well. And also when you go to their booth, you will see Bruce in there in the video. It's a cartoon, but it's still Bruce, so you will see him in the cartoon. As a reminder, this webcast will be available in about 24 hours, so if there's others that from your organization that are, maybe you're starting to think of benchmarking, you want them to listen to this video, you have 7 days. The recordings will be up after the entire event closes, and you can have others sit and listen to this recording. Well, that is all we have for the live events today. We have 2 more events tomorrow. We have one that starts at 12 o'clock Eastern, and we're going to be talking about there's a couple of channels. They're going to be discussing how to approach them the right way in omnichannel, which is kind of a theme of the whole customer journey. And then we're going to, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we're talking about where all the different technologies come to play, and you're going to hear from some of the sponsors of this conference, and they each have like 4 minutes each to tell you the type of technologies and tools that they have. So thank you all for attending today, and that's it for today's live sessions. The recordings from yesterday are all up. The recordings from today will be up tomorrow, and of course you can always go ahead and get all those slide decks. So thank you all. Thank you to Benchmark Portal, to Bruce for presenting this session on benchmarking. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.